The first controversial aspect of this work is, of course, the theme. What we are seeing is the exact moment when Pluto is abducting his niece and future wife, Proserpine. The strong and muscular figure of the ruler of the underworld gives off unbridled sexual energy. Bernini was considered the worthy successor of Michelangelo. He is particularly famous for the details he used in his sculptures, the definition of muscle, veins, and bones. But above all things, he was known for his ability to create very dramatic narrative scenes in his sculptures, to capture intense psychological states, and also to compose sculptural ensembles that convey magnificent greatness. The details in Proserpine's expression are striking. We can notice a tear on her face. Tears freeze in the maiden's eyes. Pluto's hand squeezing the skin of her victim, with 3 fingers in her leg, but also in her back. When marble seems to be real flesh, the same details in his own face when Proserpine is pushing his cheek, moving violently the skin of Pluto. The realistic vein in his right forearm, the delicate folds in his cloak, the details of Pluto's divine beard, or his joyful but malicious expression, the ferocity of Cerberus, defiant at the base of the sculpture, all very impressive details. The elegant contrapposto of the sculpture, which is the posture to glorify the figure of a subject, the god, king, or hero of the story in Hellenic sculpture, is often stand in contrapposto. More specifically, this type of twisted contrapposto is called serpentinata. At first glance, Proserpine looks tiny next to Pluto, but if we look more closely, we will notice that the proportions are correct. Pluto has 1 foot in front of the other, and both are slightly flexed. As we said before, stand in serpentinata, what makes him half head shorter. In the case of Proserpine's body, it is tilted outward. Her arms and legs are completely flexed, giving the illusion that she is shrunken. However, if we correct its figure, we will see, more or less, Proserpine reached the height of Pluto's neck. Therefore, the measures of the couple are, in fact, ideal. This is another example of the drama that Bernini is capable of expressing. No matter how neat the measure of his sculptures are, he's still capable of generating complex visual effects. The second controversial aspect of the work is the fact that this sculpture was actually commissioned to Bernini by the Cardinal, Siompe Borghese, who gave it to another cardinal as a gift, Ludovico Ludovici, in 1622. Ludovici was not only a cardinal, but also the Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, meaning one of the most influential men in the faith. Which leads us to the question, why two religious men occupying prestigious position who preach charity and kindness will have a culture as dark and merciless as this one, especially describing the act of one of the most controversial moments in the history, the kidnapping itself. Of course, this sculpture was not meant to be for the public, was designed for the personal contemplation of the Camerlengo, resting in clandestinity in the cardinal's private collection until 1908, when it became the property of the Borghese Gallery, and the world found out about his existence. According to Claudian's poem, Pluto was furious in hell for his lack of a wife and descendants, and he was preparing to declare war on his brother, Jupiter, discussing the decision with his entire court of infernal allies, the Furies, Tisiphone, the Manes, and some of the Titans. Pluto then sent a messenger to declare his frustration and threats to his younger brother and ruler of the world, Jupiter. Therefore, Jupiter, to avoid a war with his older brother, decides to give him a wife, a very special one indeed. He decides to give him one of his daughters, Proserpina, and together they plan her kidnapping. The context of the poem could be showing us the meaning of this sculpture. Is it possible that this religious cardinal is giving a message? Could this be an expression of his loneliness and rage for having participated in the religious vows of chastity and loneliness? As we said before, this sculpture has a very strong sexual background. Is this a yelling at his colleagues about his desire to have a wife? A surrender to temptation? A proclamation to carried away by his base passions? Fulfill their deepest desires even through non-moral means, such as kidnapping, an intense dark desire to have a wife. On the other hand, there is also the fact of the dark nature of Pluto. Why have they chosen the king of hell for this representation? Are they identified themselves with the king of darkness? Pluto in Roman mythology is the darkest of the gods. Could this reference be a declaration of corruption in behavior? We are of course speculating, but we can at least agree there is a very disturbing background in this sculpture. Why people who represent goodness and charity wanted to have this shocking sculpture in their palace. In addition, the Roman poet Claudian was not a Christian, in a time when Christianity was the official religion and the inclination to paganism was very dangerous. According to one of the fathers of the Catholic Church, St. Augustine, Claudian was a pagan poet, which of course increased the already very controversial artwork. As we said before, Claudian poem of the Abduction of Proserpina was his last work, and it's incomplete. The last chapter was never finished. Some of the last lines of the poem describes Pluto and Proserpine entering to hell for the first time, preparing the forced wedding. It was the greatest infernal event. Everybody was celebrating the royal wedding. Meanwhile, on Earth, Proserpina's mother looked for her everywhere, distraught and in deep sadness. This sculpture is a direct reference to our deepest and often darkest desires. How many times have we been in this position? We are conditioned since the day we are born to become moral, ethic, and decent citizens. And perhaps, to a certain degree, we have succeeded in that project. But from time to time, our darkest desires, they return and try to seduce us. Do we have everything we really desire? If not, how far are we willing to go in order to achieve that will? The end justifies the means. In the burning fire of passion, how hard is it to contain our deepest desires? But sometimes, those desires can only be fulfilled in the imaginary world of art. This is the beauty, and at the same time, the tragic legacy of Bernini's Abduction of Proserpina.